welcome to Rave Sensation. I'm your host, Dan. And in this episode, I'm going to be looking at the Atlas Artist Edition #1 featuring Joe Maneely and subtitled The Raving Maniac and Other Stories. And this is the second book in FANTAGRAPHICS series of reprints they're doing of the Atlas Comics library, Atlas being one of the names Marvel Comics had before they were Marvel. This is the first one, Adventures into Terror. And this was, in this book, what they were doing was they're publishing every story, every issue of the comics, every story that was in Adventures into Terror. And kind of like what PS Art Books does for all the different pre-code horror comics, which, you know, there's good things to be said for printing everything in a series. You know, I myself, I have very particular things that I like about pre-code horror comics. I see a lot of YouTubers, and they talk about every pre-code horror comic, including ECs, like every issue's a stunner or, you know, whatever. I'm a bit more particular even about the ECs. I'm not a everything EC did was great kind of guy. I have particular things I look for and like. The thing is, the ones I like are not the ones that everyone picks when they're doing best ofs. So while there's a lot of things in here that I'm just, you know, I can't say that I really want a best of, because they might not pick, you know, I might then miss a good story or something. But it does make for a bit of a slog, because there are definitely some things in here that aren't that stories that are kind of boring, okay? But there's also some really good stuff in here too, some that are really fun with really, and you know, I'm really into the monsters. There's some really cool, funny monsters and some weird situations. So I think this is a good book. One thing I will say is, though, that they did not do the comics any favors. First off, this is small. This seems small. I think this was one of the pre-code comics that was still at the larger size. I could be wrong. I don't know. I mean, I know I've seen Atlas Comics in person, but I don't know off the top of my head. I don't own any here to go grab. It seems small. And the reproduction. And this white paper is just so white. All the colors are just, and they just don't seem right for the horror titles. I mean, there are some things that come out like okay. I mean, I think that cover looks good, but there are many parts where I feel like, you know, they just don't have any atmosphere to them because of the way the colors are reproduced. It reminds me of the colors in those John Stanley little Lulu reprints. You know, but anyway, so there is that. So when it comes to this, I like this. I don't think it's perfect. You know, I'm not somebody who goes over the top. You know, I'm not one of those guys who's going to buy 20 different things looking for the exact right reprints. But there are some things that I think, you know, that doesn't seem like too big an ask. And especially when now we come to this series here. So this is all about John Manley. God, Joe Manley. And this is, sorry, I still have a bit of a cold. So this is a best of. You know, they're hand-picked stories. They're not trying to cover everything he ever did. There are still some absolute stinkers in here. I'm just like, why did you put this? I guess he did it because of the art. But but look at the size of it. I had put this on top of it. I mean, look at the difference in size between those. So that's one good thing. And this is, Joe is not somebody who's had a lot written about him. He's not much discussed. But when you look, and to be sure, they make a good, when in their forward, they make a good play for him being an important kind of artist. But, he is one of those guys who was working pre-Kirby. And, to my young eyes, when I was reading comics, I started with, Kirby and Ditko. And so that's the kind of dynamics I wanted to see in comics. And I still kind of feel like. And these older comics don't really have that. One thing I will say is, though, that his page layouts are really pretty interesting sometimes. And his use of panels, there's some really weird body language in some of these, too. I do like that there. And that's a nice panel there. There's the funny... there's good stuff here. So, whereas if I saw a reprint of his stuff in a single title, I might go, okay, that's good. But I don't know that I'd go like, oh, I got to collect everything this guy did. And I still don't, even after seeing this book. But I am glad to have it. It is nice to have it pointed out and to see this work. And this is... chronological here, so we are going along and we see his style. You see him change a little bit. The stories are they're typical of the time. I don't really think there's, this is a takeoff on the Telltale Heart. Death Plunge. Is this the convolute? No, this isn't it. There's another circus one involving trapeze artists planning to kill somebody. Here it is, right afterwards. This one about the clown. This is a real weeper. The poor clown. It's kind of like Jerry Lewis wants to be taken seriously. Nobody knows what a real hero he is till, what a real great guy he is till after it's too late. I mean, I'm not, again, I hope people understand, it's not that I'm saying this guy's not a good artist. There are a lot of artists who do really good work that I just don't appeal to me. And there's some pretty famous ones, pretty famous cartoonists that get a lot of talk on other YouTube channels, and they just don't do anything for me. And there's artists I like that, I know people don't like. I think it's a very personal thing. I think that this is kind of like comedy or anything, You have personal tastes, and those are going to be, not everyone has the same tastes. But, what I really wanted was, what I really wanted was some of the horror comics that were kind of promised by the cover. And you got to go through a lot of Westerns to get there. And now, quite frankly, Westerns were never my favorites. When I was growing up, Westerns were on TVs all the time. There were still a lot of Western comics. Not as many as there had been, but the westerns were still everywhere. And you know, I just didn't find them. You know, that wasn't what I wanted in comics. Although I did read some of the Marvel ones later that you know, Kirby and Severin and those people did. I didn't mean to go so slow through this. That's a cool shot there. I like the way the female alien's just kind of like, yeah, whatever. And there she is looking bored too. I hate you. By the time we get there, all the fun will be over. There they see the end of the world. The world blows up. He goes, oh, you must have missed the fun, most of the fun. Was that it? Just something that happened out there 1,000 years ago. The light from it just reached us. So, oh, but here's one thing that I meant to point out is that the color in this, even though this is still a fairly white color, fairly white page, looks a lot better. I mean, some of these look, you know, some of this is definitely off register. I mean, you see there that these are not clean lines. You can see it all over the place there. But generally, I like this color a lot better. So between the size, the color looking better, and the general overall, you know, one thing I will say is that you know, none of his stories, like I said, are poorly drawn. They might not be exactly what I'd want to see. That is not a very terrifying alien. And there, this alien is teaching us the folly of, you know, making sure we see Russia for the enemy they are before it's too late. Bring on the Cold War already. The little black box. This is a pretty gruesome one, actually. With this guy burning alive down to ash. So yeah, so there's not as much horror in it as I would have hoped. A lot of westerns, a lot of war. Well, there's a good sequence here. When he falls down this hill, he's going to chop his head off. But he wants his head to lop off down the hill. But this guy throws himself over the side rather than be decapitated and goes sliding down this hill. And I think that's a really well done sequence. Oh, this is, this is a great opening splash. This is a good one. This is a good horror story. I like this one. My only thing is with this one is, when you get to the end, I'm going to ruin the twist, but we have this great scene at the end where this guy has fallen in love with this woman. She's been covering up for her brother, who's a monster, trying to save the villagers from killing him. And but when the monster attacks her love, then she goes, okay. She decides to stab him. Then he picks her up and kills her, and just as the villagers have broken in and are setting the house on fire. Here's the thing: is this all the stuff that's happening here? This should have been 2 pages. And this should have been a big page. This should have been much more dramatic. This is a big payoff. This is the climax of a Universal horror movie, and they're doing it in this one tiny little panel. I mean, it's just indicative of how we thought of for creating action and suspense in comics. I don't want to lay every great thing at the feet of Kirby or anything, but, you know, I grew up with Kirby, like I said, and, you know, he was doing dynamic. I mean, Kirby wouldn't have had it end like this. I mean, maybe one of those early monster things he does have some pretty lame endings in some of those Where Monsters Dwell stories, I guess, but I mean, now we would know better than to do that. I still like it, and that's a great, hideous monster. The woman, look at that. This him dragging the dead body in, and then her with the monster behind her. I mean, that's really good stuff. And this, another good one, another great. And I like the colors here. I like this. This is bold to do this outline here. This part that should be, you know, because the lamp is over there, so we're seeing the side that the lamp's not hitting, so it's blue, solid blue. I mean, I know some people don't like when blue is used for black. I don't mind that, though. I like it. I remember when one of the Dark Shadow movies came out, they shot almost everything day for night, and it had a heavy blue tint on it. And then the first time it was on video, they didn't apply the tint to it. So everything that was supposed to be night had no blue tint. So it absolutely was in daylight. It was really pretty sad. Anyway, so now this is what I wanted to see from him. This is what I thought I was mostly going to get in this book, is stuff like this. Unfortunately, you know, he doesn't feel quite as inventive to me as an artist in some of this other stuff. All right. I'm going to have to go through a little bit quicker. Boy, I'm taking so long on this. With Intent to Kill. Oh, this is a good one because it's got the Peter Lorre lookalike in it. Excuse me. If I was better at editing, I'd just edit that out. But I'm doing this on my phone, so. Great shot there. Oh, and I forgot. Some of this is from, he did, Atlas had a Mad magazine ripoff called Riot, and this is some of his stuff for that. I think this is from Riot. Oh no, I don't think this is. I thought this was one of the comedy ones. I don't think it is. This is about somebody who's, you know, it's about the anti-comic crusaders. You know, and some guy from a regular newspaper comes in and is complaining about how horrible the comics are for people. And he goes, "What about you? Look at the headlines. You're trying to scare people to death." He goes, "At least our readers know that our stories aren't true. They can put our magazines down and forget about it. But you scare yourself to death by reading a newspaper nowadays?" Money Mad. So I don't know where that one came from. I thought at first it was one of the comedy ones, but this is like an EC ripoff kind of thing, kind of ironic poetic justice for someone who's guilty of one of the 7 deadly sins kind of thing. And this one, a guy who figures out a way to destroy death so that no one ever has to die, and he realizes that, you know, there has to be death. This is great. I mean, look at that. That is really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, and this larger size really helps. Really helps sell this stuff. Your name is Frankenstein. Oh, I thought it was Frankenstein's monster. He's coming in to help. Yarg. Oh, here's one. This is definitely one. I swear, this is one of the ones from this must be one from Riot. The beast from 50 million trillion skillion fathoms. I never saw this as a kid. I was a huge Ray Harryhausen fan, so obviously this is a takeoff on the beast from 20,000 fathoms and the type of movies that it inspired. Is it any good? I mean, the gags aren't very good, but the artwork in it's pretty fun. He really he's trying to be cartoonish and sexy with this woman. She seems to change her dimensions fairly often. Not that bad for a for a comedy thing, but then this horrible creature that's scaring everybody turns out it's got a huge face and then a tiny little body. More Westerns, hooray! Sorry, all you Western fans out there. You know, this looks a little bit like Maurice Evans. Well, either the Severns. They're Western stuff, doesn't it? I wonder if they might have credits in here. Maybe they were inking at Marvel by that time. And here's the Black Knight, some of the Black Knight stuff. And obviously, you know, you're doing this, you're stealing from Prince Valiant. I mean, you cannot not at this point. So here we have some of those. This is typical of the pre-curry stuff, the stuff that's done. And again, I don't have anything, I'm not saying anything bad about it, but it's just, it is a certain type of art. And, you know, how exciting or unexciting you find it might vary. I mean, I think his art for this is good, but he draws a good horse too, which is not true of a lot of cartoonists. The Crusader. For some reason, this image seems very familiar to me. I don't know. I think that might have been stolen off a movie poster or something. What was the John Wayne one about Genghis Khan, maybe? I mean, these are all seem really typical of the time. Like I said, I was hoping when I pre-ordered it that there was going to be more horror stuff, because that's really all I knew for him. Here's another parody of the 7-Year Itch this time. I guess this is from that too. It's a parody of Dennis the Menace. That's a good looking takeoff on Kitchen. or not Kitchen. Oh, what's his name? It's not Kitchen. It's Keachum. Is that the Dennis the Menace guy's name? You know, now I can't think of it. The Yellow Claw. I forgot about that comic. He was kind of like their Fu Manchu. Two Gun Kid. Yeah, I didn't know this version of the Two Gun Kid. I just knew the later when they revived him in the 60s. Cover Gallery. Two Gun Westerns. The Gun Barrel Kid. Weird Worlds. I like the. It's got like a looks like a peg head. It looks better than he did in the comic. If I'm thinking it's the one on that anti-communist comic. What he's illustrating. Good. Oh, now this is one. This cover has been reprinted a lot. It's famous and it is so wild. And this is another one. This is the one they used for the cover of this book. Fantastic. Fantastic. Here's some Black Knight ones. Looking good. I mean, this is kind of like, you know, the kind of artwork they do really does work best. A lot of this artwork from this time period works best when you're taking one dynamic frame out of order. There's Riot. Wow, that's, man, look at all those different tones on there. That is wild. That is a wild cover. Six Gun Western. There's Namor. God, his head. They did his head so weird there for a while. That almost triangle-sized, you know, looking head. I don't understand what that led to. Maybe if his head was pointy, it would make sense to make him aerodynamic under the water. Hell, I'd like to. Man, they could have done half the book as covers, and I'd love that. Spider-Man. Maybe this is the first time Spider-Man was used in a Marvel comic. Anyway, there you go. That was longer than I meant to do. Like I said, I only flipped through it, you know, a few minutes ago for the first time. I just wanted to share it with you, give you my thoughts. Like I say, everything about the color and now, mind you, if a book with this many pages, you know, if we're looking at this book, 210 pages, well, actually, that doesn't seem like that many more than this one. This one's actually a longer book. This was $75 though. See, you don't want to have to pay $75 for, you know, if you're going through the whole output under of a label. You know, you don't want every atlas. You don't want to have to buy them all. I think this was 40. Oh, it was only 35. I've already forgotten how much each of these cost. Yeah, so I think for the price, I just wish they would do something about this how bright this all looks. I mean, I don't know what the idea is. I don't know if printing it on off-white paper is so much more expensive or what the deal is, but if it was just a slightly less bright, I think it would make everything look better. Wouldn't make the stories any better, but But anyway, I'm really happy with this. I'm glad I pre-ordered it. But I think for future volumes, I might wait till it's actually in the stores and I can see it first before I buy it. But I'm pretty happy with this. So anyway, you guys have a good day. I'll talk to you again soon.